Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We are indeed, and what a time to be at eve of the UK Championship. So much been going on. I know we say this all the time. People who listen to this podcast will be well into the qualifiers. A lot of people think the tournament starts tomorrow, but well, we've watched a lot of snooker already.
We really have. You're right on both counts. We've seen a massive amount of snooker, but indeed, for most of the public, probably not listeners to this podcast, they will see the tournament, won't they? Starting this weekend. That's when the sort of all bells and whistles TV coverage kicks off. But yeah, what drama we've seen, Phil, and we'll look back at that qualifying and ahead to the matches we got coming up in New York. Judd Trump, Stephen Maguire is the one that most people are picking out as a hell of a highlight. That's one of the matches. We got plenty to look forward to, though. And we'll do that soon. But we must first reflect, mustn't we, on the Saudi Invitational last week, won by Zhao Xintong, who beat Neil Robertson 5-2 in the final. Well, we've been saying, haven't we, since that success for Zhao in May, that he hasn't really taken off this season, but there were signs that was happening, those semi-final appearances just before, and he went all the way in there. And I've seen you say elsewhere that, probably not go overboard. It's not a massive amount of frames to win, but a tournament win is a tournament win. So maybe before I talk about other matters, straight to you on that. I mean, we know thanks to your work, was it about a year ago now, I think it was, looking at past world champions, it's a mixed picture, and I've learned not to always go on that thing, although most of them do badly. Some of them do really struggle. Not all of them do. Zhao, at the moment, maybe we'll say he's a bit in between. He's back in the winner's circle.
Yeah, well, I think the thing with first-time world champions, they actually sort of tended to do what they were doing before. So if it was a big shock that they'd won and they hadn't done much, they just went back to doing what they were up to previously. But Zhao is a very hard one to predict because obviously he was away from the sport with his ban. Even before that, he was quite unpredictable. So having a guess at what he'd do this season was was very difficult. He was so good in Sheffield that everyone sort of thought, oh, he's bound to win a few here. But it's been a quiet start. Yeah, 13 frames to win it. I don't think you can judge too much, but I think because he'd been in the semis in the international and the champion of champions, then that is a bit of a trend, isn't it? And what a time to be coming into form if he
Oh,
is as he looks to be with the UK and the Masters coming up. He's got to be a really strong contender for both of those. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't think he was ever going to go down as a dominant force right now, maybe later. But sorry, that's my dog's barking. Um, but I don't think he was ever going to rattle up 5, 6 tournaments in a season. He'll just have really like unstoppable weeks, and that's a bit what he was like in Riyadh. He was very good to be what I would say is the best player this season, Sean Murphy, then the world number one, and then probably the second best player this season, Neil Robertson. So yeah, very impressive. Again, it's not going to go down as his greatest achievement in his career, that tournament, but it might be significant in terms of giving him the confidence, getting the nerves out of the way. The first win as world champion ahead of some much bigger tournaments.
yeah, and he does win the UK. That is a great example in sport of, I mean, snooker players want to win all the time, but it's a great example of sport, of peaking when it matters the most. I've always loved sports people that do that. Um, Brooks Koepka was an incredible one for that in golf. I think a long time he won more majors than he had sort of rest of tournaments. Quite remarkable. It's something like that. But Rinker's always a great one for that as well. He's got the same amount of slams as Andy Murray, but far lesser career in the round. But turns it on, produces often when the stakes are at their highest. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. I was going to do Animal Magic, Phil, but I thought maybe I'll move it forward a bit. Really wild show. I think that was. I'm just
That's
getting.
as recent as my childhood. Yep.
Yeah, it's recent, about 30 odd years ago. That's not too bad. Phil, there was mixed views about the venue, I think it's fair to say. Now, John Higgins had plenty to say there and since. There, talking about the height of the table, I mean, he was saying it was pathetic. He said he can't believe it, it was past. Talked about, it looked like beer mats holding it up. That was an interview on TNT Sports with Matt Smith and Stephen Hendry during the tournament. He's since told me and our colleague Shane McDermott that, well, he said the backstage facilities were so below par, this is quoting, so below par, it was unbelievable. And the tournament director, when he got to the venue and needed to change. He was staying somewhere away where his hotel and accommodation was. He said you can either change in a toilet or change in a area behind the stairs with a sort of black curtain round it. So he said it wasn't good enough at all. The backdrop to this, of course, he's the chairman of the new Professional Snooker Players Association. So he'll be thinking, it's probably time for me to speak out on a few issues. He's clearly doing that. By the way, he says nearly half the tour signed up for that. That's another line of interest, including players, he said, top ranked players, lower ranked players from all across the tour. But he's saying it just wasn't good enough. WST, have made their response to that. You can see that on my Sporting Life column. They're insisting the table was within regulation height. They're absolutely, sure about that and saying that categorically. They're also saying that, we do have issues at venues. We do our best within the various, problems that we might encounter. And I think, look at the bigger picture, they'll say the event was a success. John Higgins does say in other parts, the production around the table, he said, was fantastic. Neil Robertson says the table was one of the best he's seen. So a mixture of views for sure. I have to say 2 or 3 other players I've spoken to since that John Higgins recent piece, I've been in contact with that were there, and they absolutely agree with that. They say it was really bad, they thought, backstage. 2 or 3 players who were also playing the event I have been in conversation with, and they said John was absolutely bang on there. There was no dressing rooms. They think to be asked journalistic license, we were told. I'm not sure the tournament director told necessarily, probably asked, but there we go. That's the license we sometimes have in our game. But they say, changing in a toilet or behind a curtain, sort of next to the stairs, isn't great for top sports people. So a mixture. Unlikely, because what we haven't heard that thing generally about Saudi Arabia. We know that, everyone talks about how well they looked after, so a bit of a sort of turn up, but strong words from the chairman of the new association, Phil.
Yeah, definitely, and it's good that they do say what they think and what they experience, because that's not the view that we have given of those Saudi events normally, and it does sound different from the other ones. They couldn't have been more differing reviews of how they treated on the other one. So yeah, that was surprising to hear, and good of John. He's explaining it to us, and yeah, the table conditions were very confusing just watching that tournament, because it was clear that some people were really struggling on some games, and then other games both players were absolutely fine. They seemed to sort of really change, or certain players were struggling with the same ones much more than others. Neil Robertson said it was the best table he played on the season after other players could barely do anything on it. It was, yeah, Higgins and Ding, that match where John said it was too high. Clearly, Ding was struggling as well. I remember Mark Williams' defeat to Judd. Mark was as bad as you've ever seen him, really. And I've not heard from him actually. But he might not have blamed the conditions, but it was unusual to watch the massive swings in standard. So it did look like something was going on. But yeah, I think I'm just glad that the players feel capable and willing to give honest reviews of things, especially in those Saudi events, because they do seem very sort of staged and as adverts for um, the people putting that on. So we get a lot of praise from players over there. It's good to hear the other side of the coin as well.
Indeed. And I mean, I think we can get bogged down a little bit on the table stuff, which still continues to some extent. John Higgins telling myself and Shane that he was told the threshold was 3 inches. Now, I dutifully reported that, and also the response from the World Snooker Tour, they say it's actually half an inch. So, sometimes things get lost in translation, but there's obviously a big difference between half an inch either way and, a difference of 3 inches. That's pretty obvious. But, what WSC say that the height was regulation. It's been no different in terms of, the height it needs to be and that threshold throughout John's career. John says to us, he was told it's 3 inches. It's first he's heard of it. But I think we're also, can be maybe guilty of going in a direction that is maybe not so important. I think the most important thing now John is wanting to get across is that he thinks the facilities aren't great. And let's be honest, without far, I'm not no big fan of the Saudi project at all, but complaints have been about venues throughout this season and maybe longer. And I do see fans sometimes say, "Oh God, it's boring from the players now. Stop going on about improvement to venues." And I have some sympathy with that sometimes. You sort of think, well, these guys are being handsomely paid, and they do a pretty, nice job, but I don't know. I mean, snooker, has, the idea we hear Barry Hearn sometimes fanciful talk of being up there with the likes of golf and tennis. I mean, it's clearly not that kind of global sport, but if you have high pretensions, then provide the players with a dressing room type thing. So there's an all kind of mixture of things going on here. But that story's available for you, by the way. That my John Higgins story on Sporting Life. Phil, that was Saudi Arabia. Now let's move on, shall we, to the UK Championship qualifying. I know you kept a really close eye, pair of eyes on that on the opening few days of qualifying, and two eyes, just one eye, I think, isn't it? Just one pair of eyes, two eyes.
Yeah.
I can see you thinking, yeah, get on with it, Nick. There, Liam Pullenfield, an early 147 and his 6-1 win over Kalen Patel. What a 15th red in that. I mean, I've got a bit of attention for that on my social media, and that was absolutely smashing. Not a middle pocket one. I mean, they're all hard for people like us, but even I can get the odd middle one in. But getting them in the corners, different ball game. And well, it must have been something in the water then, because a few days later, Chang Bing Yu made the 16th record 16th. What a black! Great piece of commentary on that as well. It was so exciting. It was Dave Hendon and Phil Yates on duty, wasn't it? And yeah, the way the pink was, you think it was going to leave a tough black. Oh, it was a stinker, really. You had to get the rest out. The cue ball went the other way. Is it going to go in the green pocket? It was, only snooker could do that on the one that made it the record. It was pure drama. Loads of other stories. Mikhail Shabalzik against Jimmy White, we were teeing up. The 14-year-old won it. He won it 6-2. And then he beat Jordan Brown in the round after. He could be, he is some prospect. Louis Heathcote beat Jack Lazowski 6-2. So, bit of a surprise. Jack not necessarily building on that Northern Ireland win quite yet. Luca Purcell lost 6-3 to Ian Burns, so struggles continue for the former world champion. Mitchell Mann beat Chris Wakelin 6-3, and our team Higgins beat Ali Carter 6-4. That's some of my highlights. Over to you. I'm just going to get my story right on how many eyes I've got. Back to you.
Yeah, I mean, amazing maximums, both of them. That was superb. Great to see Liam Pullens really having an excellent season. And that was a nice little bonus to it as well. A couple of other early ones. Igor Figueiredo back involved. And I think he's going to be back on tour. He's certainly won a tour card for the next 2 seasons. Whether he takes up or not, we'll see. But he beat David Grace comfortably in that early round. And he's someone you don't really want to play down in that first tier player. Yeah, great run from Ian Burns. You mentioned the Brissell win. He beat Fang Zhengyi first, and then to beat Luca. A pair of great wins there. I watched the decider between Michael Holt and Rhian Evans in that first round.
Oh, that was drama, I heard.
Yeah. No, second round. Sorry, that was. But yeah, that was the dictionary definition of Shredsville there. Both had a few chances, both
Yeah.
on edge there. Holt just about got over the line. And I mean, he's made the most of that. It's been brilliant. Great win over Jackson Page to follow that up to get to Judgment Day. There was a pretty big game early on between Daniel Wells and Rob Milkins, which Wells pinched 6-5. And in Milkins's scrap to stay on tour this season, that could go down as a big one because this is bigger prize money than a number of other events. So that could be a decider to look back on. And I think we teed it up before about Jamie Clark getting a place in the qualifying here through the
You
Q
did,
Tour.
you did. Don't be humble. You did.
Well, he made the most of it. I mean, 3 great wins, beating Lanya Howe, impressive teenager, then Mark Davis, then a great win over Matt Selt to get to Judgment Day. So yeah, good stuff from him. And then yeah, there was that little spell in the third round, and you mentioned Chang's 147. That was in a 6-5 loss to Maguire. It was a great game. And it was in a little run of really dramatic finishes. Gilbert beat Boyko 6-5, which was good tension. Liu Hao Shan beat Matthew Stevens 6-5 from 5-1 down, so a bit of a stinker for Matthew there. And Zach Surety beat Martin O'Donnell 6-5 from 4-0 down as
Oh
well.
yeah, I
So
saw that.
great comeback from Zach. And yeah, that third round was also. I watched quite a lot of Slesser against Revej because Revej is one of those we talked about a lot at the start of last season. He came on, looked quite exciting, got some good wins, but he's been really quiet this season. He won 2 good games to get to the third round, and looked like he was going to beat Slesser. He was well ahead in that decider and lost it on the final black. So tough one for the young Hungarian, but hopefully he'll take the positives of winning a couple of games, winning a bit of money. But yes, Leicester got over the line. So yeah, there's all sorts going on long before Judgment Day. It was very exciting.
Do you know what? I see this point made on forums. You may well have said it on here before. I think I have vague memories of sort of saying the third round, the round before the Judgment Day, is often quite extraordinary. And I know because often at Sheffield, that's when I tend to join it big time because very often because it clashes with the Masters golf actually.
Mm.
So after the Sunday, that Monday, for example, in Sheffield is often it can be more dramatic than Judgment Day. Actually, there's something about that round.
Yeah,
Obviously,
well, I think
maybe.
yeah, I think that's when the biggest names come in and when they're most vulnerable because that's
Oh,
their first game against someone who's
yeah,
definitely played at least one, if not two. So I don't think we mentioned Wakeling actually. Chris Wakeling losing
we
then
did.
to right, yeah, to Mitchell Mann. Jack Jones went out then. Carter, McGill. There are a couple of other like Brissell, you said, um, players that you would really expect to be at least be in Judgment Day, if not be in York, all gone in that third round. So yeah, I think it's the fact that they're the big hitters, but they're at their most vulnerable there.
No, that's a very good way of saying it. And you mentioned Daniel Wells. This is something we definitely would have forgotten, not least. I don't think I scribbled it down. Brilliant on here, wasn't he? Thanks so
Mm.
much for setting that up, Phil. That was our special guest for our fifth birthday episode last week. Thanks again for all your correspondence, and thanks to Daniel. He was brilliant value. And I thought, Phil, a bit of the old talking snooker magic was going to rub off on him. He was going all that way, came unstuck on Judgment Day. We'll have a look at the results shortly, but in general terms, I mean, we're you know singing from the same hymn sheet, I'm sure, playing the same old record, but no apologies for doing it. Great format. I was saying on my radio snooker service, I see people say, not just in this sport, but in others, oh, it'd be great to do this more often. Actually, if you put your thinking cap on, it's not possible to do it that often. And that's for a whole load of reasons. You don't often get multiple matches like this at particular events or tournaments, whatever the sport. The rights don't often fall into place. It really isn't something you can do that often. And maybe something you wouldn't want that often because then it would take away the sort of magic of it. NFL has it every week, but that's an outlier really. I think it's a superb format, and I'd say they do make good decisions. It's sometimes not easy. I was saying again on my other service that there was a Jamie Clark battle on the blue that seemed to go on for absolutely ever, and I could almost hear in the commentators' voices, this is really exciting because everyone knows the blue ball game is exciting, but it actually went on for so long, it started getting almost farcical. So even though they're on the blue, we've got to go elsewhere. They were like, we can't stay here forever, and they kind of did. So there's some of those awkward decisions, but they tend to make them very well. Obviously, four matches here, so there's a bit more leeway type thing to sort of go to the right places. But it's just a really exciting surface, isn't it? And not for everyone. Some people I know like to focus on the individual matches, and that's fine. The same way that people would on the NFL on a Sunday. Sometimes red zone can be too much, so that's fine. But listen, it's a great service for those that like their pure drama. And yeah, maybe over to you. I know you're a big fan too.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, yeah, and you can just pick the single game, so it's got you could do what you want on that front. Yeah, you can't get it every week. I wonder if maybe talk of the China Open coming back, or we could get it in for one of the big Chinese events, maybe. Because yeah, I think UK Judgment Day and World Judgment Day are two of the highlights of the season, really for
Oh.
for snooker nerds. It's not going to be for everyone, but yeah, it's great. And sometimes when there is real drama going on, they just leave it on the split screen, don't they? And that's superb. Um, so yeah, no, big fan of that. I'm sure we said it every year, but
We do.
it's excellent. And one thing that when you spoke about Daniel there, it reminded me, I think it was Justin Barnes on Twitter mentioned when we were talking about Sabashik winning games, looking very good at 14 years old. He pointed out that Daniel Wells said on here that he didn't make his first century till he was 15. And
Oh
Sabashik's
God,
on tour
yeah.
beating people like Jordan Brown, Jimmy White, making a century on the Pro Tour at 14. I mean, that says something, doesn't it? It's so good.
That's a really good point, and Justin. Yeah, I like that. That's absolutely correct. And yeah, Daniel was just marvelous value on here as ever. They give so much to these players. There's so much sort of rich sort of honesty. I think is the way to say it. Probably could have put a better phrase than that. But and people will say to me, and they say to us. I'm sure they say to you as well. Will follow these people more, and I love that because when I hear that, I think that's music to my now ears because I feel the same. When I see these
Mm.
guys, I know them. I've watched them for years. I've interviewed them sometimes, but to get them to know them absolutely better than that when they come on here is absolutely brilliant. I'm getting messages from all over the place, Phil. Snooker players keep bloody messaging me. Actually, no, I don't know who it is, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a professional thing. Some would say you could have done it before went on the air, eh? And try and actually silence that a bit, so I can just get on with Judgment Day results. That's what we'll do, Phil. Now we'll first of all talk about Wednesday, and well, I mean, there's lots of drama, no question. Most sessions had drama. You kind of expect that, but most of them had sort of really close ones and at least one or two close ones. That wasn't the case with Stephen Maguire and Burns. Maguire had a thumping win there, 6-1. Michael Holtbeek won Citroen 6-3. It was David Gilbert 6, Daniel Wells 4, Lou Howshan 6, Mitchell Mann 5. That's a very exciting one. Into the evening, Xiao Yulong 6, Jamie Clark 2, Elliot Slessor 6, Zach Shirty 4. And then, well, two dramatic matches. Ben Wollison 6, Joe O'Connor 5. But definitely the story of that day, no question about it, was Scott Donaldson 6, Drew Bingham 5. I mean, I watched an awful lot of that. I mean, it was, in snooker terms, it was outrageous, actually. Donaldson was 5-0 down, came back to win. I mean, I've seen Stuart post since, bless him. He's like, well, that was a sore one, but they couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But of course, Scott then saying on television to Rob Walker that his dad sadly died recently. So he has clearly had an awful time. We're very sorry to hear it, and we send our condolences to Scott and his family. But he says, there may have been something just in the air. He can't believe he won it. I thought he was very magnanimous in saying how sorry he was about Stuart. I thought that said a lot about him. But it was emotional scenes, that classic thing. As in all our lives, our work, and it is work for them, meeting their personal lives, all kind of coming together in one sort of, big emotional night there. And but yeah, so that was quite something for you to reflect on there, Phil. And you don't get many of those for the pound. I saw a list, and I've got Phil Yates's voice. He said this a few times in commentary over the years. 3-0, 4-3, yeah, fairly often actually. 4-0, 5-4, that gets rarer. 5-0, 6-5, you're talking almost hen's teeth.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, Scott would have been the underdog going into that. Stuart Bingham's won almost a lot, hasn't he? So yeah, I don't know what the odds were at 5-0, but very, very long. And yeah, that interview, because of the circumstances and what it's about, it seems weird to say like that's my favorite part of sport or like the bit, but it's certainly the bit I remember the most. They're the kind of things that stick with you, and it always makes me think of that Andy Murray losing speech at Wimbledon where he like his voice cracked and he
Oh
sort of
yeah.
it's not going to be easy that bit. And I mean, I'm not a huge tennis fan, but that made me just absolutely love Andy Murray. That's my favorite moment of his whole career. Um, and I think, like you were saying, listening to people on here, and now you'll be fans of their game and follow their results. I think a lot of people will instantly be Scott Donaldson fans after watching that interview. Very, very moving. Um, Incredible stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't know Scott. I've interviewed him two or three times, and he seems like he's like a lovely man. So I was delighted for him. Obviously, that's a sore one for Stuart, as he said. But yeah, amazing story, and that kind of thing. Yeah, that'll take some topping over the whole tournament for me in terms of things that I'll remember from this UK Championship. Just incredible scenes, really. And delighted for him. Obviously a very, very tough time. I think you get this in snooker, well, sport in general, but snooker, people's parents are so key to it, driving them around for everything. They've probably got into the sport through their family. Um, so yeah, they're obviously losing a parent is massive, but they're so connected to their whole job and their whole life in a different way other than in snooker, it seems anyway. So yeah, yeah. If you haven't seen that interview, I'm sure you have, but give it a watch. It was very, very, very good, and Rob did well there, I thought, in tricky circumstances. But yeah, amazing, amazing drama. And Wollaston O'Connor, that went on for long after that. But Joe was got him in so many snookers. It was, I mean, he really is sort of Mark Selby, junior Mark Selby, isn't he? But he didn't quite get it in the end. But it was a great effort to keep going for so long. Um, but yeah, so that was day one, Judgment Day.
I've forgotten that. And not only were they snookers, they were horrendous snookers to get out of, weren't they? He just kept going tight on the ball he was behind. He was just fiendish. I mean, Ben looked like he'd been through the absolute ringer after that, and he really had been. They were brilliant snookers he was leaving. Someone on commentary said it was, might have been Phil actually saying it was. So, oh, no, what Phil would have been, it might have been Dave. Dave was on duty for this, wasn't he? Saying it was kind of a masterclass. It really was. Judgment Day results on Thursday then. Um, well, let's have a look at those then. And David Lilly beat our team Jizin's 6-5, century and a four half centuries from Lilly. Pang Jung Soo 6 knock on Siankam 2. Ryan Day beat Hossein for 5-6-5. That was a dramatic one. As was Long Zhihang against Louis Heathcote. Long was 5-3 down, won that 6-5. Into the evening, it was Zhang Anda 6, Tep Chai on Nu 4. Julian Leclerc 6, Heige Kwang 4. Lei Pei Fan 6, Jimmy Robertson 5. Breaks of 1-2-2 and 54 to win it at the end there for Lei Pei Fan. And Zeus beat Tom Ford 6-3. So, yeah, right old mixed bag there, Phil. I saw a little bit less of that. This was last night, Thursday night, because all sorts of things going on elsewhere for me in the work and indeed just in terms of big night at the television. But I tell you what, I kept in touch as best I could. And there was some proper old drama there. Few losing players you had to feel sorry for. And I mean, I saw bits of the Ryan Day Hossein fight. That must have been one of the highlights to look at from the day.
Yeah, heavyweight clash really for that round, isn't it? I mean, Hossein's been dealing with that injury, so he's doing well to compete, really. But yeah, it was obviously I just had the Judgment Day coverage, so it was flicking about a lot. Lily Zhizhen's was the interesting one. I think absolutely no disrespect to David, but it would have been a good story for the teenager from Latvia to get through. And it was amazing that that one finished first, despite playing all 11 frames. So it was a good, well-paced match. But yeah, I mean, it's also a good story for Lily to get through at his age. I think to that round for the first time, been plugging away for all these years. But yeah, disappointment for Zhizhins and disappointment for Louis Heathcote. I was a bit gutted for him there. He was ahead in that decider. He feels like he's on the brink. He is progressing and he's on the brink of a bit of a step forward, and that will have hurt there. But a good effort. And Long Zhang's a good player. Um, and yeah, the one that I mean, Julien Leclerc getting through is the best story of that lot. I thought, I think he's 22. He plays an aggressive style of snooker, not just attacking, but I don't think there's anyone on tour who hits the ball harder. And it just all suits his package of being this enormous guy, the
Yeah,
Belgian beast. And he plays
yeah,
that way as well. I mean, the noise the balls make sometimes when he box them is incredible.
yeah,
So he's got a tough one in York. We'll get to the draw, but it'd be good because it'd be good to get him on main stages more because he's quite a spectacle, really, at the snooker table. I mean, he's a great player, great talent. And I think the one that really impressed me and does impress me when I see him and he's on it, Lepe Fan, I think he's just such a good player. We know what he's done. He won the Scottish last year, beat Kyron at the Crucible, and he is inconsistent still. But when he gets going and he's got a bit of a strut around the table, and he looks superb. And that game against Robertson was great. So it's the second half when Lay got going really well. I think he looks brilliant. So again, we'll get to the draw, but he's got a good player in York to play, but no one's safe if Lepe Fan's playing well. I really like his game. So yeah, it was another good day and concluded. I think is that a Zeus Ford match. Unsurprisingly, that was the last one. That got really sticky at times. I think it was just that one and Lay against Robertson left. And Lay and Robertson was really bubbling up, and the standard went through the roof really at the end. Whereas Zoo and Ford were both struggling badly, and it was Zoo who got over the line. Um, to give a record amount of Chinese players, there are 12 Chinese players in the last 32, which is the most ever. I think the same amount as English players, which I don't think will have happened before.
good man. Great review as ever. And have you got the draw up? I might pass to you to actually have a look at that in a moment and give us the full details, and then we'll look ahead, won't we, day by day to what we got coming up in York. Uh, so much to come then, as you rightly said at the start. Great way of saying it. For many people, this will now be the tournament, but we've seen so much already. And to incorporate this, I do join my voice to the many that said that it has added gravitas again. I think they could do more still, actually. I think they could do a bit more to add the gravitas to this, including maybe a little bit more cosmetic surgery on the stages towards the end. But listen, they've done a fair bit towards restoring the gravitas, and we have to say that's been well done from World Snooker Tour. As we look ahead then to one of the great tournaments of the season, the UK Championship, in terms of the main stages, we'll do that in a couple of moments' time. Phil, let's first say, shall we, a name check. Say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. We're still on the air, Phil, into our 6th year. Amazing stuff. And the UK Championship is on the way. And give us the draw. We had it, didn't we? During the play, there were so many either ors at that stage. It was a bit of a mess, but it's a lot clearer now. Give us the details, sir.
Well, let's go. Yeah, I'll go down from the top. So this is from the top half. Number one seed, Judd Trump. And this is the standout, really. The one that got people going the most. Trump against Maguire. And Si Jiahui against Ryan Day. Ding Junhui against Zhu Se. Mark Allen plays Scott Donaldson. Mark Williams against David Gilbert. That's a nice one. Xiao Guidong plays Pang Junzhu. Wu Yizer against Michael Holt. Neil Robertson against Julian Leclerc. I said he had a tough one. That is a tough one against Robertson. Kyron Wilson, Elliot Slasser. That'd be good. Barry Hawkins, David Lilly. Mark Selby against Lei Pei Fan. Ronnie O'Sullivan against Zhou Yulong. John Higgins, Ben Williston. Sean Murphy against Liu Haoshan. Gary Wilson, Zhang Anda. And Zhao Zintong against Long Zhehuang. So yeah, plenty going on there. And I mean, I started with the number one seed there at the top of the draw, and he gets the tournament underway on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, he does. I think I'll have to keep looking at it because my initial impression was, kind of like, I wasn't quite sure about it really. I thought it might be a tiny bit underwhelmed. And I don't mean compared to other worlds. I mean actually compared to other UKs. I'm going to see you sort of agreeing there. I mean, I heard some nice, wonderful, amazing draw. I was like, I'm not sure it is really. I mean, if Trump Maguire's the highlight, then and that's a good match, and we'll really enjoy it. But if that's the highlight, then to me, it's not one that I think massively caught the imagination.
Yeah, I think I felt the same. I think, as we mentioned, those sort of heavyweights that are outside of the 16 all losing, like Lisowski and Carter and Brissell, them against anyone is a good draw. So when you've lost them, it sort of
Yeah.
takes the edge off a bit. Yeah, there aren't too many that are like, oh wow, like it'll be interesting to see like Leclerc, how Leclerc gets on, um, but the ones that they look not predictable, but it seemed, yeah, no, underwhelming is fair. Wilson against Zangander is sort of level, isn't it? Yeah, I don't think there's a clear favorite there, so that's interesting. But yeah, I know what you mean in terms of it's fine.
Brilliant stuff there. And I know what you mean. Yes, that's kind of a good way of saying it. I mean, listen, well, last Saturday afternoon, we really will. Tomorrow, as we speak now, it's getting closer and closer, Phil, to the UK Championship main stages. Judd Trump then against Stephen Maguire. Well, I know there's differing views over what heads to take. And I feel like I'm about to start sneezing again. You're coughing away there. It's like we both need to take a visit to Boots here. It's like a sort of doctor's waiting room. Judd Trump, Stephen Maguire, pretty close head to head over their 15 years of playing. As if you take into account everything, including the sort of the way that Q Tracker does. I think Maguire could shock Judd actually. If Judd's not right on it, I mean, obviously the likelihood is, 7, 8 times out of 10, if you like, Judd will win it. But if Maguire really fires, I wouldn't say that would be the most surprising thing we'll see all season. But as I say, Judd will obviously start as favourite. C2IE Ryan Day, well, they met in the quarterfinals of the German Masters last year. C won 5-1. I think, like most people in snooker, really waiting for C to make that sort of ultimate breakthrough, whether it comes at one of the very big ones. Sometimes I have a feeling about a player that reminds me actually, Lisowski over the years. I did say when it comes, it will come at a very big one. But it sort of didn't, but it did in a way because Northern Ireland is that kind of got that sort of stature as the home nations. But I felt it with him. Not sure about C, but I mean, I expect him to beat Ryan Day, frankly. In that round, obviously, he had that comfortable win not so long ago. But we'll see. Interesting one. I'd love to see have a really good run. I think he's a smashing player. In the evening, then Saturday evening, 7 p.m. Sean Murphy, Liu Haoshan. I think that's a bit of a stinker for anyone to get Murphy. Actually, I didn't really want that one. I think I heard you say elsewhere, and I think I may have heard others. Maybe McManus, maybe Hendry. I think we're all singing the same hymn sheet. Sean's kind of the player of the season. But they're all different winners. It's difficult to pick one, isn't it? But he's the one that feels like he's consistently been very good to me. If he's not winning, he's getting deep stages. So it's 3-1 to Sean in the head-to-heads. They played at the Crucible last year. Actually, Sean won that 10-5. I didn't particularly remember that till I looked at it. And vague memories of it, actually, to be fair. Lou will have to do really well to win that, clearly. And John Higgins, Ben Wollaston. But they had a very famous meeting that came straight to my mind a decade ago in the Welsh Open final. And I remember Ben being really overawed that night. Higgins is playing okay, actually. He's doing all right, John Higgins. With Ben, a little bit like Tom Ford, but I'd say with Ben, it's more of a sort of specific thing. I'm never totally convinced about his belief against the very top players in the game. I never quite feel he has that. That may be unfair, but that's the kind. Does he have that real top level belief to beat a great on a big stage? That would be my concern. He has the game to beat John Higgins, no question about it. Whether he quite has that belief, I'm never totally convinced, which is why I would obviously lean towards Higgins there. But fascinating selection of matches, as I say, might not have stood out in terms of the draw, but when you go in the nitty gritty, there's some fascinating thing for us snooker people to get involved with, Phil. Maybe have a word about that if you wish, and then you can look ahead to Sunday, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I think Higgins is often vulnerable in York, isn't he? His record there is poor. He's not obviously you can't say he's got a bad UK Championship record because he won it more than once, but he's not been good in York, and he's spoken openly about that. How he sort of doesn't go as far as dreading it, but he can't look forward to it because he
He's
just
finally booked
almost
a different hotel. Sorry to interrupt. Me and Shane
there we
asked him
go.
about that. He was talking. I think I'm right to say Shane was asking him about that. Finally booked a different hotel. He said, "I've got to get a different routine. Booked a different hotel. I might do a few different things in New York." Well, that sounds silly, doesn't it? But we all like it in life. He's like, "I've got to shake it up. Things aren't happening for me." So well remembered. Yeah. So he's staying somewhere else. Who knows whether that'll make a difference? A different hotel room. We're all so mad in life. Sometimes that can do it for us.
You never know. And these upsets there's going to be some upsets. It's so hard to pick, aren't they? I mean, I don't think anyone was thinking Wollaston was going to beat Selby at the Crucible, but he did. So it could happen. Sunday, yeah, I'll move on to Sunday. Wu Yis against Michael Holt and Neil Roberts against Julian Leclerc in the afternoon, and then Williams against Gilbert and Zhao against Pang in the evening. Excited to see Wu. Obviously, he won in Nanjing, and we've not seen him since, which I don't think will be a bad thing for him. He's had a bit of time to let it settle in, get back on the practice table, and I think he could do well here. Holt got to the quarters last season, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's not had a good season at all this time round, but good wins. He was good on Judgment Day. I was really impressed with him actually. Looked great, but I think Wu could go a long way this week, so I'd back him there. And Roberts against
Yeah.
Leclerc could be crash bang wallop. It's going to be exciting. Um, Really interesting to see how Leclerc gets on. Williams against Gilbert. They're completing their Triple Crown meeting because they played at the Masters and the World Championship, and they've won one each there. So they could have a rubber match at the UK here.
Oh.
Um, Gilbert's had a bad season. Typical sort of talking down, doesn't play anymore. And downbeat interview, and he came through. But we all know how good he is. Williams bit unpredictable early on, maybe a bit vulnerable in the early rounds. But when he gets going, that tournament he won in Xi'an, he said himself he was quite bad all the way through it until the final. Then he was great to beat Murphy. So not an easy one to pick there. And then Zhao against Pang, also difficult to pick. Yeah, I mean Zhou Guidong did great to win in Wuhan again, but again has been in and out since then. So yeah, sorry, I'm sitting on the fence on some of these, but I wouldn't be betting on that one because I don't know who's going to win it.
I think you're right about Wu though, about a long run. I think he's a bet for the title, actually. I think he could win it. If I really had to pin me down, I'd say, I probably would go with someone else, but he could be right in there. I didn't see the Williams and Gilbert, the Masters. I've forgotten that. They met in the Worlds in 19 when Mark was the champion,
Mm.
because that followed on from that incredible match. They had a World Open final, didn't they? I always remember that so well. Mark Williams saying, "I'll go back to my caravan to celebrate this now, as well as my world triumph." He basically went on. I mean, it's a bit boring. We all got a cliche saying he was on a pub crawl, but it was certainly that for the first part of the season. It might not have been all season, but but it was effectively that from the Worlds onwards. Then he went to the World Open, was miles behind and beat poor Dave Gilbert. And of course, Dave hadn't won a final since then. That was an absolute. I must see you nodding. That was quite a final of recent times in the game, wasn't it? Well, say recent times, 7 years ago now, but six in the memory, eh?
I think Dave was 9-5 up
Yeah.
and on the verge of a big win in his first ranking title against the great of the game. I think that stuck with him for a while. That one, I think it's still stuck with him. To be fair,
Yeah, that's right. Well, Monday then in the afternoon, Ding Junhui against Zeus. Well, Ding's got this terrific UK record. He's got a decent record in a few events, but he's got a love affair with the tournament. You say love affair with York. He's actually lost two recent finals. I remember the Mark Allen one. I thought, what's the other one? Of course, it was Ronnie when Ronnie had those two finals. That was 7-7, wasn't he? And I think it was 7-7 with Ali in the Masters as well. He won them both from there. So, Ding could have won both those finals with winning against Mark Allen. So he could have even more UK titles. Impossible guy to predict, Ding, really.
yeah,
Could win it. Could absolutely win it. And no one would be like, we'll all shrug our shoulders. Yeah, Ding Junhui's on, and we'll say on here, well, didn't maybe see it come with its form, but again, it will be no surprise. I mean, Zusu hasn't had a particularly good season, but that win over Tom Ford will obviously give him plenty of confidence. I mean, if Ding plays like Ding can, he'll win it. But he's a nightmare. I remember Michael McMullen saying years back he's given up just predicting Ding, he just won't do it. I refuse, said McMullen. He just can't do it with that man. And well, Zhao Jintong against Long Zhihang. I mean, that's another one they wanted to avoid. I think really Zhao, the world champion, coming back off that win in Saudi. Long beat Aaron Hill 6-1. I noticed in qualifying. Not sure I mentioned that. That's a very good win. Obviously, Aaron's been playing well before that dramatic win over Louis Heathcote. So he's coming in match sharp. Zhao's coming off a tournament win. So as I mentioned, he could be, and you said as well, he could be coming into form just at the right time. Gary Wilson, Zhang Anda, unpredictable, really. Not sure Nostradamus would want to get involved with this one, Phil. Wilson, a finalist in Wuhan, semi-finalist in Xi'an. I always think with Gary, it's a funny one. You have to be careful to look at his records. He talks himself down. You think, Wilson's doing nothing in the game at the moment. Oh, he's going nowhere. You look at his record. Oh, he's getting deep runs all the time. He's just telling us he's doing nothing. That's right. Zhang reached the last eight in Wuhan, had a pretty humdrum season. He hasn't quite reached those heights that he reached, didn't he, a couple of years ago. But he always looks really capable. I always think, I can't rule this guy out of any kind of, match or maybe even having a decent run. But that's a hard one to call, I would say. Alan Donaldson, Mark Allen, Scott Donaldson. I think you'd have to fancy Alan for this one, really. I mean, it's going to be an emotional one for Scott for reasons we've already talked about in this episode. They met at the Crucible. I always think there's a bit of gravitas when it's been a formal Crucible match. Again, don't remember too much about it. Alan won that 10-6. That was 2022. They also met at the English Open in September. Alan had a pretty good win there, 4-1. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't win that, to be honest. But yeah, maybe a few words from you about that. And then you can look ahead to Tuesday's matches, sir.
I'll go straight to Tuesday because I'm just conscious of time, and you did a
Yeah.
smashing job on Monday. So Monday, Tuesday afternoon. I mean, this is heavyweight stuff in the afternoon. Selby against Lei Pei Fan and Ronnie against Zhou Yulong, and then the evening it's Kyron Wilson against Slesser and Barry Hawkins against David Lilly. So great day that. Yeah, Selby and Lei. As I said, I'm impressed by Lei Pei Fan, and that is more than a banana skin for Selby, who similar to Higgins, has not been great in York in recent years. His UK success is a while ago now. And it wouldn't be a great surprise to me if Lay turned him over there, even though Selby's been great. And I noticed there were some predictions on World Snooker Tour website and social media, and Ken Doherty and Stephen Hendry both tipped Selby to win it. So,
Mm.
yeah, again, you wouldn't be surprised, but I wouldn't be that surprised if he lost there. So that's an interesting to watch. But I guess most people will be watching Ronnie against Zhou Yulong, which, Zhou Yulong's such a good player, been to all these finals, looks like a really tricky draw, but he's never beaten Ronnie. I think I've got it here, they've played 7 times. Ronnie's won all 7. They've actually, weirdly, 3 of those 7 meetings have come in the UK Championship, which the
Oh,
odds on that seem long. Ronnie won 2 of them 6-0. And then in 2023, last time he won it, he won 6-5, and Joe had a good chance to win that. That's when Ronnie got all the way through to
oh
win the tournament.
yeah.
And without really doing anything good, he beat Milkins 6-5 as well then. Should have
Milkin
lost,
should have
really.
won that. Milkins
Yeah,
had golden chance, didn't he? Yeah.
yeah. So Joey Long, great player, can beat anyone, but he's got a mental hurdle to overcome against Ronnie. But yeah, we said that again about similar about Jacques Lazowski when playing Ronnie, and he beat him recently as well. So could happen. Wilson versus Slessor looks like a good one, doesn't it? Impressed by Slessor this season. Kyron, great start, then been off it for a while. He's playing with a new cue. He was telling me about this yesterday, actually. His cue broke at the start of the season, and he'd been made a replica of it, which he wasn't sure about, but now he's using it and he does like it. So he's not. I don't think whatever happens this week, I don't think he'll be using that as an excuse, but he's using a different cue. So that'll be interesting. Then, yeah, Hawkins Lily will probably get the least lines of any here. You got a fancy Barry, haven't you? David Lilly doesn't get to this stage of many big tournaments. Barry finalist last season.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't be surprised if he did that again. I mean, he nearly won it. That was a great final, actually, wasn't it? He did really well. Um, and I imagine Barry Hawkins will do what Barry Hawkins always does. He may well turn up in the quarterfinals with barely anyone mentioning him, but no one would be surprised.
God knows what I'm saying. Oh yeah, I spoke to him a few days ago about it. I've got a line coming from him, a Barry Hawkins exclusive coming to Sporting Life. He tells me about his Triple Crown record and you know maybe how much he'd love to win one before, as he says, he hangs up his cue. So I've got more from Hawkins to come across this weekend and building up to his match then on Tuesday night. And I just saw one thing. They met in '98, Phil, that pair, at Jester's in Swindon in a professional tour qualifier. And as we know, David Lilly didn't turn pro for donkey's ears, did he? They met again in 20, two meetings, one of them the shootout, and then world qualifying in 23. So brilliant, like that. 98, 2020 twice, and then 23, and now 25. So unusual pattern there for sure. Phil, you're right to be wary of time. We're going to shoot off very soon. Quick one. BBC One has live coverage of the first session in the final. Very unusual. As far as the schedules are concerned, they're saying that BBC and all their snooker material they're sending out the website are still saying BBC Two as it normally would be. As far as I'm concerned, it's coming up on BBC One. That's great exposure for the game. I said this on my radio snooker service, so I say a lot more about TV coverage there. But just to say, no Sean Murphy on the BBC team this year. You will not see Sean Murphy on the coverage. In terms of TNT, Rachel Casey will present the coverage on the opening weekend. As I understand, Matt Smith will be on duty. We saw Matt in Saudi. Matt will be the reporter there. Razi Chinyanganya will join the team from Monday. Elsewhere, all the usual sort of big names. Jimmy will be in New York. I understand Rhiannon Evans is part of the team. So lots to look forward to there live. And I should say more often that's very UK centric. I know it is. Sorry, BBC and TNT here in the UK. Plenty of options elsewhere. As we say, Phil, we don't like to take any personal responsibility for this. We pass the buck, pass the baton on and say, WST has all the details. Take it up with them.
Yeah,
But they do. You confirm that. Phil, lots to look forward to at the UK. I went to the Crucible Cup in Reading, spoke to a number of players there. I'll tell you what I took from it, among a few other things. When I got there, I could just hear the hubbub. Everyone was like, I've just seen Selby. Robertson's upstairs. They loved seeing the stars. We take it for granted. We see these guys all the time. We do it across sports, but I know we cover this one a lot. But when you get down there to a snooker club and people could pay a fiver to watch these stars, if they're members, it was free. Otherwise, it was a fiver to pay join up as a guest for the day and watch these stars. But just catching a glimpse of them, people signing autographs. I saw Henry mooching about there. People, just absolutely loving to get autographs. These guys are stars. I maybe see it a bit at big events. When you go to a lower key place like that, a proper snooker club in Reading, you realise, it means something.
big time. Yeah, that is a great thing for a snooker fan to go to for a fiver. Um, and yeah, I wasn't there, but I'm sure they're just milling about, and you can speak to these guys. And if you sat in those seats, you're almost within touching distance of them. Yeah, so brilliant. Yeah, I watched a fair bit of it. Obviously, the qualifiers were on, so I was flicking between them. And look, I was more engaged in the qualifiers because they felt and do mean more. And that the Crucible Cup was well done. It was an enjoyable watch. I like the 900 format, but it felt more of sort of an exhibition-y bit of fun. And that's what it was, and that's fine. That's great. Because there's different levels of people who want to watch snooker, aren't they? Not everyone wants to watch the first round of UK Championship qualifying, like I do. A lot of people who maybe don't watch that much snooker would be much more engaged with, seven of the top 16 in the world playing this fast-paced 900. And if that gets people into sport, then great news. It's probably more likely to attract in new viewers than me watching Michael Holt versus Rhiannon Evans in a deciding frame in Wigan. So yeah, no, I think it's positive for the sport that that's in. The players sounded like they had a great time. Um, I do think that it's a question of sort of they've been let off the leash a bit and enjoying themselves because if World Snooker Tour put on an event in a snooker club that was like that, they'd be like, "Oh, what are we doing here? Why are we playing there?" But because they've been let out of school a bit to go and play, then they're having a great time. But that's no knock on it. It was good, and the presenting team's great there. So yeah, all positives. And one thing, just because I mentioned Wigan there, I wanted to mention this earlier. I put a picture on Twitter, the seats. We've got to mention this because I actually think it's a disgrace. It actually wound me up just seeing it. You're paying, people are paying to go and watch snooker in there. You couldn't sit on that for more than a frame or two. That's awful. I don't know if people haven't seen it. They're these sort of wooden bleachers, I say it's like an Americanism, but benches. They look horrible. And I asked people to say, and quite a lot of people who've been there replied, and they said, yeah, it was just unbearable. People had to go in out loads. Sean O'Sullivan replied, former pro. He said his dad came to watch him play there, and he had to give up and watch it on the screen in the players' room because it's just too uncomfortable. Like you can't be charging, but you can't. If you want qualifiers there, no one's in. That's one thing, but you're charging people to go and watch a Triple Crown event. You can't be making them sit on that. It's appalling.
Well, strong words from you saying a disgrace. I saw your picture. I mean, those, yeah, I mean, the comfort level on those benches can't be great, it has to be said. I did actually, I was in conversation with a couple of very wise characters in the game, and they were not making out, they were saying categorically that they didn't think certain things would happen that happen on the table in a different venue. They think that, because it's kind of so low key and, not many people there a lot of time, it's fair to say. And I mean, players should turn it on wherever they are, but it's human nature. And they were kind of making the point if that was maybe a match at the Barbican, that would never, there were very different outcomes you'd see. But that's maybe an interesting one there. But yeah, well, you're going to have a look at that picture on your Twitter feed, Phil, and you've got a lot of response to that. You say a lot of people saying, no, I couldn't do very long there. It was pretty bad. So let's have yours say. People often say, you say about this tournament, that tournament. It's across the board that people are saying sometimes facilities aren't great for fans. What's your view? Talkingsnooker@yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker, talkingsnooker@yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. Should say Neil Robertson won that tournament in Reading, and he's saying he loved it. He loved the rules, and he wants the rules to slightly evolve. We put a line up on our social media about that, and it's fair to say our fans are saying no, we don't want the rules to evolve. Maybe the odd event, but we like the rules the way they are. And yeah,
I think I agree with that. By the way, I like the
well,
900 and have 900
yeah,
events. I don't want the rules of snooker changing really.
I, I do agree. I do agree. I'm always conscious of one very good snooker person that said once, "I'm a traditionalist," but there's enough of us to go round, and I sort of tend to agree with that. We're all sort of traditionalists, aren't we? That's the problem. But maybe we're all traditionalists in a good way because we think the traditions are brilliant and they're worth protecting. But sometimes maybe there could be some more people in snooker that are a bit more. I sometimes think people say, "Well, I'm not a traditionalist. And I've got this idea and that idea. Maybe that would help us a bit more." But who knows? Maybe I'm just waffling.
Well, I mean, it's easy to compare to cricket, isn't it? And I'll watch 20. I like going to 2020, but I also Test cricket is the best in my mind and by a mile. But I'm happy for 2020 to exist and play that and attract other people. But you don't need to bring. They could be separate things, can't they? So have 900 events, great, more the merrier. But you don't need to let that bleed into traditional snooker.
Well said. Irish Women's Open takes place this weekend in Carlow. Good luck to everyone involved. We'll have the news of that when we're next on air. Any other business? Just finishing up, Phil. I mentioned my John Higgins piece already. That's on Sporting Life. I'll have a Barry Hawkins piece for you soon. I'll talk more about television coverage. There's quite a few more little tidbits in there for you of what we can look forward to on my Radio Snooker with Nick Metcalf service. You mentioned the cricket. Oh, bloody hell. It's a bit funny, this gap now, because it's a very quick series, but because England lost so quickly in Perth, it feels like the energy's gone out of the series a bit. And this next test starts next Thursday. They'll have to play better. It's that pink ball game. Oof. Bloody hell. I mean, I think you got, what time did you get up? Crack of dawn, wasn't it?
On that first day, I got up to watch the first ball, and I just watched an over and went back to sleep at 2:15 in the morning.
What
Um,
over? Brilliant.
yeah, well, when Crawley got out, I was just like, it's not worth ruining my Friday for this, but it did anyway. Yeah, and we'll lose that second game for sure as well. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, tough one. I mean, there's all those stories about people flying over to Perth and wasting thousands because they didn't even see any cricket because they got there on day three. But I mean, I felt pretty hard done to just because of having no sleep and watching it here. But yeah, I don't have much hope for us in that second test. So 2-0 down probably, and we'll see. We'll see how we do from there.
I didn't see stories of people getting there for day three, actually. I saw a couple of jokes like that. I didn't know they actually existed. I saw lots of people milling about that Lions game after the first 2 days, saying, oh, one guy was like, why are we here? Which I thought, look, on that route, Colonel. But I didn't know people arrived for day three. Oh, my God. I mean, that's ugh,
Not great.
not great at all. Phil, we're going to go. We've got big news, haven't we, before we go about the Tony Mio Trophy. Here's a line you weren't expecting, folks. How's this for you? Hope you're sitting down. I think you probably might need to be. The Tony Mio Trophy is going to be live on the telly. That's right. The old goggle box in the corner, Phil. The old Roger Melly. Me and you. We're audio stars, really. Superstars in a way. Certainly stars. Maybe not super. But we're going to branch out into another medium entirely. You will be able to watch the Tony Mio. We'll have full details of that coming up on our social media feed. And I've already been getting the excuses over to you and I about doing no practice. So I've got those in there. I'm playing the world champion. And that's why I'm not getting engaged with mind games. I'm not going to get engaged with mind games when I'm up against the world champion. It's like if you're going to a world championship against Hendry in the 90s. Well, it's just ridiculous. I want to go into mind games with Hendry. I mean, what's the point of that? I mean, I've just got to do my best on the table. No one will expect me to win. No one will expect me to win. So who knows?
You're going to send me back to my sad little life, maybe.
I don't think you have a sad little life though. That would be too mean. I don't think that. Phil, let's just say strange things happen on snooker tables. Strange things happen in sport. That 12/6 with those, different coloured balls, you cannot predict what will happen. You might feel a bit off. I might suddenly get inspired. We want people to tune in. Get the telly on. Get radio rentals on the people do still hire tellies from radio rentals. Not sure they do anymore. Phil, coming up on the telly. Looking forward to it. The old Tony Mio.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll let you know how to stream that. Not sure who's gonna want to watch that. I mean, I sit watching some sort of streamed games sometimes and think, what am I doing here? I mean, there's got to be something better I could be doing. And you may well feel the same if you're watching the Tony Mio. But do tune in and see. It's very kind of them to in the club we're playing in New York to put that on. So yeah, do try and enjoy it if you're watching.
Indeed. And Phil, UK Championship. We can't wait, can we? Special event, all live on the BBC and the TNT here in the UK. No doubt coverage throughout Europe on Eurosport and wherever you are. Loads of broadcasters will, of course, be showing this tournament in different parts of the world. If not, it's available on WST Play. It's one of the special ones, isn't it? We have special ones throughout the season, and even I, who are generally, a big buyer into the Triple Crown concept, there are brilliant events throughout the season that aren't the Triple Crown events. But there is something about these. For me, I still think, I know I'm an old fogey, but I still think there's something about these magic, Triple Crown events that just have that extra gravitas, that extra sort of history about them. And if you win one, you really feel like you're part of the history of the sport. Predicting a winner, I mean, it's virtually impossible at snooker events these days. We'll just enjoy it as it unfolds. We have great drama. And as ever, when we get into these really big ones, you kind of often forget. I had a bit of this in the Champions League with ITV. You forget the news stories will be mad every day. Come tomorrow, Saturday, this weekend, things will be happening all the time. Keyboards will be on fire.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's massive. We've got some great tournaments all through the season now, but these don't lose their luster, so plenty to look forward to.
That's a bit like Rob Walker and Barry Hawkins there. Utterly ridiculous build up from me, quite rightly dampening it down a bit from you. Great to see you, sir. I salute you, and we'll see you next time here on Talking Snooker. Enjoy the UK Championship, everybody, and we'll be back in our next episode to look back at what will be a magical week in York, I'm sure. If you're going, let us know. Tell us your view of what it's like in York. Talking Snooker at yahoo.com, or tweet us at Talking Snooker. For now, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.